Hey guys, Jason here, Samco Workshop. Today I'm going to give you a tip on preventing tool rust, okay? Most people don't understand it doesn't matter where you live, what climate you're in, your tools are going to rust. Why? If your garage is heated, maybe not, okay? And a lot of people do have heated garages, but if you're like me and my garage, my workshop here is not heated, I live down here in Georgia where we have tremendous high humidity, but even when I was in Michigan, if I would run a heater in a garage in the winter to work on something and it heated it up, if you opened your toolbox, you would notice that every one of your tools would be coated in a film of water, okay, from condensation and humidity, okay? It's very common, and even if you live in a place like that up north, in the fall, especially fall and spring, when those temperatures are such a drastic change from 70-degree days to 30-degree nights, you get condensation, and all that stuff is going to form all over in your tools because they're metal and they're drawn to it. So what you get is you get a layer of rust. Now, most of your like chromoly coated wrenches and stuff like that and your sockets, they hold up pretty durable to that. They do pretty well, but there are still some tips that will help you prevent this kind of stuff like you see on here, this rust and pitting on there that you see happening. Like, look at here, look at these cheap ones. Look at the heads of those steel ones. See how they're all rusted out? There are ways to prevent that I'm going to show you. Look at these are old. I mean, these are very old, but you can see the rust spots on them, okay? These are Craftsman. I'll bet I've had these for 35 years. But we take all these, most of the stuff in here is somewhere between 20 and 35 years old, maybe even a little older than on some of that kind of stuff. So we can prevent that. The worst is always going to be your screwdrivers and your wrenches, but your screwdrivers are notoriously going to rust on there because they're not coated like that. Same with your pliers. Any kind of pliers are going to be that way. And these are ancient. I've had these for a very long time, and they've actually held up really well compared to all that. How do we keep all of this stuff looking good? But like I said, as you can see, they are more prone to rust and things like that. How do we prevent that? How do we stop that? Okay, well, since I moved to Georgia and I noticed that stuff rusting a lot more, even though it was a concern then, and I always used to use WD-40, which is what we have here. WD-40 in a jug, I buy it, I put it in a spray bottle, and I've made it a habit ever since I was a mechanic when I was 19 years old and I had all those expensive Snap-on tools. I was ASE certified in suspension, tune-ups, and brakes, and that's what I was going to school for. But I would make a point every time that I used a wrench, okay, when I used a wrench, when I was done with that wrench, we're just going to do it here because I'm one-handed, I would make a point to coat it on both sides with WD-40 and give it a quick wipe down like that before I put it away. So every time I used the tool, I would wipe it down before I put it back in a toolbox with WD-40 to protect it. Okay, and I was using my tools all the time, so I always did that. And even in Michigan, I made a point every fall at the end of summer to go through each tool, I would pull out this whole rack right here, just lift this whole thing out like this. Again, we'll do it here for demonstration purposes. And I would just coat this whole thing with a little WD-40 like that, and then I would pat it dry. Okay, let it just do what it's going to do. Yeah, it's going to soak for a little bit, but it was a lot quicker and easier than pulling out each wrench. But this is what I did, okay? I mean, I'm a very lazy person, so this was a simple tactic for me to do, first doing each one individually. So I would do this to everything in my toolbox at the end of every summer, just to make sure that if I'm not using it, they are coated, okay? So again, maybe not the best way. If you want to take your time and you want to go through and grab each wrench one at a time and do that, go ahead. I'm not doing that for every single individual piece of tooling that I have in this drawer. I'm just not doing it. But I would take a set of sockets, set them here, okay, hit them like this, flip them over, hit them like this. Okay, that was my method, and it worked good, and it still does to this day. And then WD-40 stands for water displacement number 40. The 40th attempt is what it is. So it dispels water. Okay, so I would do this to every one of my sets of tools, and it did a very, very good job. Since moving down here to Georgia, where the humidity level is much higher on a much more regular basis, and I have to deal with it a lot more often, what I've done now is I've switched to fluid film, and it's made a big difference. Okay, same concept as that, but it's made a huge difference. So if we take like we take this here, for example, this set here, if I spray that real quick with fluid film, okay, it's going to coat that really well. and it's going to work on there, and it's going to do a good job of preventing that, preventing that rust from happening, and it's going to put a layer that sticks on there really well. So we just do this to each one of them. Now, as you use your tools, you can do it, like I said, I do this once a year is my intention for each of these. Pull them out and hit them once a year. But as I use a particular tool, this rag here, what I'm going to do is if I'm working on something, I will take this rag and I'm going to spray it with fluid film like this, and then I'm going to wipe every tool that I used really good and get it coated with that fluid film like that before I put it away. That way it's protected. This is really the only way to beat rust unless you have a climate controlled garage that you have your tools in. So take the time to go through them, hit them. You will prevent this stuff that will happen overnight while you're sleeping and you don't even know it, especially down here in Georgia. Now, could I wire brush that out? Yeah, I'm not gonna. I honestly don't care that much, but I am going to make sure. See, I got that fluid film on my hands. That is now well protected against anything like that happening again for a while until I use it again. When I use it again, we are going to hit this with a rag full of fluid film, or like I said, WD-40 usually works pretty good too. Down here in Georgia, the fluid film is going to be the way to go because of the constant every night humidity. But just go through your tools, take your time, hit them all. You know, if you want to take it socket by socket, you go right ahead. You do whatever you want to. See how these are. Okay, all of this setup here, this impact set, you know, it's getting pretty wrecked here. We're going to just fluid film this whole thing. Just like that. I'm going to flip it over. Fluid film it again. Let that just run and soak on there. And then I basically have that, you know, these are now protected from any future rusting or anything like that. And like I said, fluid film's amazing stuff. We've used it on our trailers. It's one of the best undercoatings there is to prevent rust. Okay, so this is just a protective, preventative way to be able to protect your tools against that that overnight humidity that's going to rust them out and keep them all safe for you. So just a quick little tip. Something hopefully that helps you. Tools are not cheap today. They are very expensive. And if you want to keep them looking good and lasting forever and where you can hand them down, you have to protect them against that sleeper, that nighttime humidity change that's going to really just do a number on them. So little quick tip for you. Thanks for watching.